Honorable members, first, let us welcome in our gallery. To my right, opposite the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Rural Development of St. Lucia. Let us give him a warm Sakafet Gasop. I will translate that unlike the Honorable Member, Mr. Henry. Sakafet Gasa is basically the patois greeting for how you doing, man. And as one member just said, good behavior. We're not in a church, but there are certain rules of behavior we have to observe. And we've been correcting them as we go along. And I want to remind everyone about reference to His Excellency the President. And what you've noticed, the moment someone raises, I would say, not there, withdraw. And I will continue to do that. So we start, Sherlock.
Presentation of petitions, presentation of papers and reports, etc. Reports from committees. Oral questions without notice. Questions and notice. Statements by ministers, including policy statements. Personal explanations. Request for leave to move the adjournment of the National Assembly on definite matters of urgent public importance. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the National Assembly and moved by minister. Public business, government's business.
Our first speaker today is the Honorable Vinceroy Jordan. Honorable Member, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, permit me to welcome the Honorable Prosper, Minister of Agriculture out of St. Lucia, to our National Assembly, and I trust that his day will be one that is rewarding and fulfilling. Mr. Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to the budget presented by the Honorable Senior Minister in the Office of the President with responsibility for finance on January 15, 2024, under the theme, Staying the Course, Building Prosperity for All. Sir, let me from the outset say that this budget lacks the capacity to improve the lives of the ordinary Guyanese. That is to say, sir, this $1.146 trillion budget will not meet the needs of our housewives, pensioners, teachers, nurses, farmers, and the general workforce of our working people. Mr. Speaker, this biggest budget ever has completely neglected the poor and low-class worker, while, sir, it continues to focus on enriching the friends, cronies, and associates of the PPPC, even those incompetent ones in the form of a critic. Mr. Speaker, when you can give our modern-day pensioners $3,000, who must put huge costs of living and medical bills for themselves, it is an outright embarrassment to our senior citizens. Mr. Speaker, I sat and listened to the Honorable Minister with responsibility for finance, who, in his preamble to his budget presentation, gloriously praised the PPPC for its work and numbers at the last local government elections. But, sir, he stopped short of saying that it was the same PPPC that was involved in electoral malpractices. Sir, what the minister did not say to the Guyanese is that no less of a person and the Honorable Vice President Barajagdio had to apologize to the family of a deceased woman whose name and signature appeared on the list of nominators long after she was buried. Mr. Speaker, I challenge the Honorable Minister to tell the entire story. Or people would have said, Honorable Sonia and Jafar Ali, they will know the rest. Sir, I will end the story, however. Electoral fraud, malpractices, vote buying, gerrymandering, and falsifying of signatures are the record of this PPP administration. More so, sir, in the recently held local government elections. Sir, that is the record of the PPPC. Mr. Speaker, what is true from the results, however, is the fact that the APNU made inroads in Bushlot Village, where in some cases we never had votes, and this time around, sir, we picked up votes in double digits. Sir, also in the Blairmont Geraldine NDC, where the APNU had 2 and 3 seats, those were all increased to 4 seats, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask this government, where are the relief that was supposed to reach the ordinary man in 2023? Sir, where are the relief and support for the agriculture and small farmers? Sir, where was it when pumpkin was $1,500 per slice? Where was it when sugar was $360 per kg? Where was it when boro was $200 per bundle of 10? Where was it, sir? Where was the support when plantain was $260 per pound? Mr. Speaker, where was it when beef was $800 and $1,000 per pound? Sir, where was it when celery recently was $2,500 per pound? Mr. Speaker, where was it when tomatoes and peppers were $500 per pound and 4 in a plastic bag for $1,000? The price of these local cash crops is a clear indication, Mr. Speaker, of the failure of this government's agriculture program. Mr. Speaker, that is the harsh reality on the ground. In every region, in every town, in every village, all Guyanese face the burden of the high cost of living. To add insult to injury, sir, the government has delivered a paltry or meager 6.5% increase in salaries for our public servants. Sir, I understand that the ministers of government would not know what I'm talking about. They cannot feel the pressures that are brought to bear because, sir, they don't go to the markets. They don't have to face the shops. Mr. Speaker, Auntie Betty in Port Morant knows what it feels like. Uncle John from New Amsterdam, Cousin Waverly from Linden, and Brother John Apple from Cameron. They all know what it feels like, Mr. Speaker. Sir, the ordinary man knows what it feels like under this PPP administration. Mr. Speaker, it was the very Ipadaji, International Decade of People of African Descent Assembly Guyana, whose annual subvention of $100 million was taken away by this heartless PPP administration. Mr. Speaker, thus removing valuable support from many in our Afro-Guyanese community, it has deprived many of our valuable assistance in agriculture and community development. I therefore call on the PPP government to immediately restore funding to the Ipadaji and fully compensate that organization for the years lost. Mr. Speaker, please permit me also, sir, to put on record that we in the APNU AFC coalition call on the United Nations General Assembly to carefully consider the extension of the decade of the people of African descent by granting another decade. Sir, I might also point out that it was as a result of the response to the decade of African descent that we saw under the APNU AFC government that it was introduced for the first time the Rural Agricultural Infrastructural Development Program, commonly called RAID, with funding from the Caribbean Development Bank to the tune of $318 million in the communities of Ithaca, Mocha, Beefy, Triumph, and Buxton. That is what a caring government do for its people. Mr. Speaker, permit me to dissect the Honorable Minister's speech on agriculture and food security. Sir, in paragraph 4.4, 7 of page 34, the minister echoed, and I quote, over 200 shade houses were procured, hydroponic projects benefiting over 300 youths from Region 2, 5, and 10 were launched. Mr. Speaker, this government, which spent almost $1 trillion last year, comes to this National Assembly to boast of a project benefiting over 300 youths from across 3 regions in our country, when in fact, sir, Guyana's youth population stands well over 135,000 youths, according to the 2021 estimated population of the Guyana Bureau of Statistics. This is mere 0.2%, sir. Sir, these youths are not only located in the traditional agricultural regions, but, sir, in all 10 administrative regions. Mr. Speaker, it is highly unacceptable for this PPP government and its ministers to come to this house to tell us about financial agriculture projects to benefit only 0.22% of our youth population after spending over $900 billion of our wealth. Sir, the minister with responsibility for finance and agriculture should pack their bags and leave. Sir, we say pack their bags and leave. Sir, but if they don't leave, the very youths that have been deprived of the much needed opportunities will soon send them packing, sir, at the next general and regional elections. Mark my words, sir. Mr. Speaker, it is the vision and plan of the next APNU AFC coalition government to ensure that agriculture is extended to every region in Guyana. Sir, the youths of Port Kaituma, Makatai, and Matthews Ridge in region number 1 will experience the opportunity to become young agriculturists and entrepreneurs. Mr. Speaker, the farmers in Letem, the Deep South Rupununi, those in Bartica and Itamali in region number 7 will receive benefits from the next coalition government to go to the ground and the waters as they explore the true agricultural opportunities of region number 7. Mr. Speaker, like the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, Mr. Aubrey Compton Norton, I share the views and vision that the people of regions number 1, 2, 7, 8, 9, and 10 must be given the opportunity to develop their potential in agriculture, to feed those regions and play also, sir, an integral role in placing Guyana, not only as the breadbasket of the Caribbean, sir, but also the South American nation that will feed the nations of the world. Mr. Speaker, it is against this backdrop that our government will very early put funding into the establishment of a new modern designed campus of the Guyana School of Agriculture in strategic geographical areas of service, or rather to service agriculture in those regions. Mr. Speaker, we don't want this good-for-nothing government of the PPPC coming to tell us about giving 300 youths out of 135,000 an agriculture opportunity, more so now in a $1 trillion budget economy. Mr. Speaker, what we want, sir, is for them to tell us now, Mr. Speaker, what are the immediate plans, programs, and policies to develop agriculture in every region so that every Guyanese can benefit. Sir, we want them to tell the nation what the ordinary farmers will receive to aid in the growth and sustainability of their crops and livestock. Mr. Speaker, we want them to tell us what assistance there is for the farmers of Hackney and Kakakaburi villages in Pomeroon River, and not to pass them in their usual discriminatory way and starve them of services and resources. Mr. Speaker, we want the government to tell the Guyanese why they took away the excavators, bulldozers, and other equipment from the Ithaca Land Co-op Society, which cultivate thousands of acres of land annually. Yes, sir, we need them to return those machines now, Honorable Minister of Agriculture, to the people so that they can thrive and do well in agriculture. Mr. Speaker, not for them to come here and play some Holy Mother of Mary, Mr. Speaker, when in fact they skillfully choose which community they will give support and which they will not. Mr. Speaker, I want this government, this very Minister of Agriculture, to tell us why he neglected, Mr. Speaker, the communities of Buxton, Moko, Ithaca, and BV Triumph, and the program of the coalition under the Rural Agricultural Infrastructure Development in these areas. Sir, then they have a prime minister who sails into communities and is water boy at that ministry, running to give people cutlasses and forks, when in fact, sir, the coalition had already chartered a course to see the complete advancement of these communities under the RAPE project. Mr. Speaker, who do they think they will continue to fool? For long time done, short time left. Mr. Speaker, the people will remember them for taking away their bread and trying to hoodwink them with crumbs in their cheap, narrow one Guyana politics. Mr. Speaker, all these projects not only had a plan for agriculture by the coalition government, but also, sir, also the development of its own infrastructure and cooperatives. But, sir, I guess perhaps the billions now funneled into infrastructural development of our agricultural sector are truly for the family, friends, favorites, and flatterers in my comrade Shiram Chitan voice. Mr. Speaker, many are there who know that out of the $72.3 billion targeted for drainage and irrigation, that sector, over 20% of that will go directly to contractors, sir. Again, sir, perhaps it is because some people's sons and brothers must benefit, so it is said that way. Or perhaps, Mr. Speaker, it is probably someone else's opportunity or turn to buy the newest model Rolls Royce. Sir, I'm not sure, but you might know better than I do. Mr. Speaker, it is important to note that while this government boasts about $97.6 billion being pumped into the agriculture this year, I want the Guyanese to really understand the true outlay of this allocation. Sir, the Guyana Rice Development Board, which deals with the support of production, varieties, and yields within the rice industry, only received a meager $1.3 billion. Yet this government speaks about expanding the rice cultivation industry. It begs the question, Mr. Speaker, where is the study? Where are the plans? How did you arrive at this figure? Sir, other crops, corns and soybeans, coconuts, agro-processing, citrus and spices, livestock, fisheries, and aquaculture all received just over $6.6 billion, Mr. Speaker. Just a fraction of the sector's entire budget. Mr. Speaker, fisheries and aquaculture receive $1.2 billion, livestock receive $1.5 billion, other crops receive $2.6 billion, corn and soybean receive 967.8 million, agro-processing 527 million, citrus and spices 100 million, coconuts 78 million. Mr. Speaker, these are the sectors that we must develop to expand agriculture in Guyana. In this regard, rice cultivation and production are critical, and livestock farming plays a pivotal role in our agricultural development, sir. Mr. Speaker, this budget has no studies, no policies and plans for the development of our meat and dairy production. There are no plans for the enhancement of feed production and marketing. Mr. Speaker, a pasture here and a pasture there will not expand agriculture. Sir, a bull here and a bull there will not improve the breedings. Sir, a barren black belly sheep with no lambs cannot expand agriculture. Sir, the agriculture minister must tell the nation when he comes to speak, what is the total increase from the black belly sheep project? Had studies been done on the appropriateness of this black belly sheep to Guyana, they would have been much more cautious. They would have been much more cautious in bringing them and boasting about this project. What we need, Mr. Speaker, is a comprehensive agriculture plan and program taking into consideration every region and their geographical differences, Mr. Speaker, while recognizing the need for a careful balanced allocation that will see a new and developing agricultural sector paving the way for Guyana to become the nation that will feed the nations of the world. sir, with a structured and sustainable agricultural sector. Mr. Speaker, one that is first and foremost focused on the development of all our people and not just a few. Mr. Speaker, I dare say to this government lacks any concrete plan and vision for the true expansion of the agricultural sector. Sir, in fact, what they are interested in are the many infrastructural projects slated to come on stream soon, Mr. Speaker, where they can get their hands on the deals with the contracts and control the agencies to grant same in their favor. Sir, least I forget, are you aware that this government granted a contract valued over $800 million to a close friend called a critic? I know you are usually so caught up in...
I will ask you to withdraw that because we all know.
So guided, sir.
Thank
you. Guided, sir. I know you are usually caught up in the effective, efficient, and unbiased operations of this National Assembly, that you might have missed it as how many Guyanese missed and quickly forgot about Sue and the VP handling all the arrangements, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Minister with responsibility for finance upon the advice of the Minister of Agriculture comes to this house and carefully coined the speech and chooses his words, sir, to tell the nation, and I quote, in 2023, we commenced the design of 3 new hope-like structures. He went on to say, sir, we will also be investing heavily in our pump stations, full stop. Then in 2024, the government will continue works on pump stations at X, Y, and Z. What he did not say to Guyanese, Mr. Speaker, is that this government has already spent billions of dollars on these pump stations, and almost 1 year later, not one is completed, Mr. Speaker. Not one is completed. So much to say, sir, Guyanese don't know if any is past 50% completion as yet. Mr. Speaker, the government plans, yes, we heard about the rollover. It is the same way you throw a gun in a bag in the police station, Mr. Speaker. This government plans to invest billions of dollars into new infrastructural programs. Mr. Speaker, this government seems unable to deliver a contract to the most responsive and competent bidder in a fair and transparent process. Sir, this government also lacks the capacity to supervise and ensure a contract is properly executed from startup to completion. Mr. Speaker, every Guyanese must note that after 1 year, not one single person stands to benefit from any of the pump stations that this honorable minister mentioned. Mr. Speaker, the people of Blackbush Polder will be able to tell us better. God forbid an extensive rainy season steps in right now. Or perhaps, sir, the people of Cottage Myconi, who are likely to experience more flooding from these delayed and poor infrastructure structures, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this PPPC government likes to shout to the top of their voices that the coalition doesn't like sugar workers. But, sir, let me set the record straight. Mr. Speaker, we have no problem with the sugar workers. We were right-sizing the industry in the interest of the very workers and our country. However, sir, we question the waste and mismanagement of the spending of billions of dollars on Gaisuko because we care about the industry, sir, and its sustainability. And Mr. Speaker, we will continue to question the poor management and gross incompetence of this government when it comes to Gaisuko, after knowing for a fact, sir, what the VP Jagdio did at Skeldon with that failure of a project, Mr. Speaker. Sir, we cannot run from it. Gaisuko is failing miserably under the PPPC. It failed and was almost completely destroyed prior to 2015. And yet again, Gaisuko is on its dying bed in 2024. And here are the facts, sir. From 2019, under the coalition, APNU AFC, which was the last full year in office, Gaisuko received and produced the following: $4 billion. You need understanding, Honorable Soni Parag. Gaisuko made 92,246 metric tons of sugar, sir. Mr. Speaker, when compared to that of the PPPC in 2023, Gaisuko received $6 billion, which was spent, and we see a major decrease, sir, with Gaisuko only making 600,000 metric tons of sugar. Yet again in 2024, Gaisuko will receive $6 billion. Mr. Speaker, we don't have a problem with the PPPCs obsessed with those projects that are failing, Mr. Speaker, because they for themselves are failures altogether. Mr. Speaker, in short, Gaisuko received approximately $4 billion in support from the APNU AFC government annually as they plan to ensure it returns to optimal production and sustainability. Then moving to viability, and sir, it produced at an average 100 metric tons of sugar annually under the APNU AFC. While under the PPPC, Gaisuko received over $30 billion, sir, and all public servants must know, all Guyanese must know, over $30 billion in just under 3 years. And now it's producing an average of about 50,000 metric tons of sugar annually. Mr. Speaker, this is 50% less than what we produce under the APNU AFC government. Mr. Speaker, that represents the failure of this PPP administration. Mr. Speaker, the bottom line is, sir, that the APNU AFC coalition government prudently managed Gaisuko, and the industry was better off aiming to be viable and self-sustainable. Yes. That is what the PPP must tell Guyanese, Mr. Speaker. And I challenge the Honorable Zulfikar Mustafa, when it comes, Mr. Speaker, to admit that Gaisuko was better off under the APNU AFC, Mr. Speaker. And not to speak about that failure at Rosal, where he pumped billions of dollars, Mr. Speaker, only to produce 1,030 tons of sugar, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, instead, the Honorable Minister with the responsibility for finance came to this house and said sugar expanded by some 28%, sir, when in fact sugar production took a drastic decline from the last complete year of the coalition, where in 2019, like I said, we produced over 92,000 tons of sugar, Mr. Speaker. Now, sir, in 2022 and 2023, Gaisuko produced 47,000 metric tons, sir, scrape of 53,000, sir, and now, sir, producing 60 metric tons of sugar, respectively. Sir, what the minister did not tell the nation is that the sugar production target was reduced twice, and sir, most laughable, a third time just to meet what the Minister of Agriculture would call achieving one's target. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Agriculture should pack his bag and go home and stop spending and wasting taxpayers' money on Gaisuko. As a matter of fact, sir, the entire board and management of Gaisuko's, the head, sir, should pack their bags and leave and allow that corporation to grow and prosper, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, what a travesty it is for the minister to be talking about an increase in sugar production. Mr. Speaker, permit me, sir, to turn to region number 5, the land of my birth. One would want to ask again, sir, whether this government really cares about the ordinary Guyanese. Mr. Speaker, healthcare services are at its all-time low. One would want to believe that from last year to now, when I came to this August house and spoke about a non-functioning X-ray machine at the Fort Wellington Hospital, that the government would have quickly fixed it. Instead, sir, matters got worse. Mr. Speaker, today the machine is still not functional and even causes electrical shock to the patients and staff of that hospital, sir. Sir, that is a matter for the Honorable Jafar Ali to make representation for the people. But instead, sir, he and his party are busy disenfranchising the poor, the sick, and the vulnerable of bad settlement, depriving them, sir, of the $200,000 cash grant that the government is offering to its friends, families, favorites, election day workers, sir, and their candidates. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Sonny Parab will be able to clearly point that out to you, sir. Mr. Speaker, with all these talks about modern healthcare facilities by this government, and the assurance of even having a bare minimum treatment of cold, cough, and flu in Region 5 is becoming a nightmare, sir. Mr. Speaker, apart from the exceptional services one will receive from some of our very much professional and caring doctors and nurses, of course, who they don't pay well, Mr. Speaker, it is most times difficult for a patient to receive the most needed prescribed drugs, thus causing them to resort to private hospitals and pharmacies. Mr. Speaker, this, sir, is an added burden on the pockets of our already struggling and working class population. Mr. Speaker, I reiterate the call for a river ambulance for our indigenous brothers and sisters of Maracaibo, where, sir, you don't buy a Land Rover for the people in the hinterland, so Honorable Sonny Parab. There's no hospital in Maracaibo. What you need to do is to get a river ambulance like the Honorable Valda Lawrence did for the people of Baracara, so that when they fall sick, so that when they have an emergency, they can quickly move from Maracaibo and go to the Maikoni District Hospital so that they can be treated. But I understand that you don't know what that is. You don't know where Maracaibo is. You don't know what are the needs of the people. And so you cannot meet the needs of the ordinary people. You buy a Land Rover where no hospital is, just a mere health post. How will the people get to the health facility that is much needed? Mr. Speaker.
Remember, I want to help you to get to the end. So you need an extension.
Thank you, Comrade Speaker. Comrade Speaker, I do move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude his presentation.
Thank you, Opposition Chief Whip. Honorable member, let's go to the end. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, permit me to wrap up on public health in Region 5. Sir, this government spoke about building a modern hospital in Bath Settlement. And sir, like I usually do, I went searching in Bath Settlement, every street, every corner, for this modern hospital where they turned the sword, of course, where His Excellency was. But Mr. Speaker, to my surprise, I had to drive 3 villages, or almost 4 villages away from Bath Settlement to find the actual site of the hospital, and that is at Nastigite, located in the Union Nastigite NDC. Mr. Speaker, this government went so low to just naming projects based on their political stronghold just to win the support, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is disgraceful, sir. It is not acceptable, sir. The hospital is not in Bath Settlement, sir, but rather, sir, it is in a place commonly called Fort Wellington. Mr. Speaker, I want to ask the Honorable Frank Anthony to speak to those in Region 5, sir, and tell them get that signboard down and properly name that hospital before they cause confusion in this region, sir. Mr. Speaker, moving on to education. I heard the Honorable Priya Manichan talking about how many new schools will be built, or rather she's building. But last year, sir, when I reported to this August House that the Oxford Primary School needed urgent repairs and that the teachers' living quarters were covered in bush, it was refuted by the Minister of Local Government. Sir, at present, I want to report that the children are currently housed, and the Honorable Anand Prasad would know, in the boardroom of the Marriage Rights Complex. That is how they care about our children, sir. That is how the Honorable Priya Manichan cares about our children. Mr. Speaker, just a few months ago, the parents and residents of Burma Maikoni community protested the move by the Education Department of what was told to them, sir, that the school will be closed down since it is not structurally sound. Mr. Speaker, no wonder why that honorable member had to run from this house. It is because of what he always speaks, sir, the untruth, sir, because you would not want me to say dishonesty, but the untruths in this house that caused him, oh, Mr. Speaker, to leave and vacate this house. Mr. Speaker, I want to put the Minister of Education and the Ministry the Minister of Local Government and Regional Development on notice that we demand a brand new school for the children of Burma, Myconi Housing Scheme, and that it must not only be mentioned in the 2024 budget, but that it must become a reality by the end of this year. Also, Mr. Speaker, while the Minister of Education continues to build more schools, I renew the call, sir, for a separate building to house the number 8 nursery school and remove the children that are cramped in the lower flat of the number 8 primary school. Mr. Speaker, several roads are in a deplorable state in region number 5. Yet, sir, in this oil-rich trillion-dollar budget economy, not much is being done to remedy this unfair situation. Sir, I want to commend the Honorable Jafar Ali and the regional chairman of Region 5 for running their little apartheid scheme last year, where they rebuilt or rehabilitated out of 150 roads, almost all in PPP stronghold areas, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, many know 23 was done in Bushlot. 30 was done in Mark Settlement, and the list goes on. Mr. Speaker, now that they have finished all those now that they would have finished all those, the residents await to see how much will be fixed, Honorable Sonia Parad, in Hope Town. How much will be fixed in Belladrum? How much will be fixed in Lovely Land? Tell us how much will be fixed in Trafalgar. Honorable Jafrali, tell us about Kingley. Tell us about Central Myconi. Tell us about Calcutta. Tell us about Port. Tell us about Burma. And tell us about Pitica, the very villages that you deprived and starved of much needed resources for the last 3 years. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, sir, like many of the people in that settlement shouted, the Honorable Jafrali must go. I want to say to you, sir, that he must go and go now. Mr. Speaker, Proverbs 29:1-2 says, he that being often reproved and hardeneth his neck shall suddenly be destroyed, and that without remedy. Mr. Speaker, take warning, Honorable Jafar Ali. Mr. Speaker, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. Mr. Speaker, I send warning to this PDP government that the scripture must be fulfilled. Mr. Speaker, I repeat this every year for this government to take heed and know that they are not lords unto themselves, Mr. Speaker, but are subjected to the authority of a supreme God. Mr. Speaker, Budget 2024 is a colossal failure, one nothing short of a thriving disaster. Mr. Speaker, and a planned scheme to keep the Guyanese people in poverty while just a few get rich. Sir, I call on all my thinking Guyanese to outrightly reject this budget and the PPPC government and vote them out of office. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. And now for the Honorable Minister of Agriculture, the Honorable Member, Mr. Zulfikar Mustafa. Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me join with you in welcoming my brother and counterpart from St. Lucia. He is here in Guyana for the